Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm Bruce McCurdy of the Edmonton Journal's Cult of Hockey, and I'm here today with my colleague Kurt Leavins, all the way from Pender Island, BC, where he watched the Oilers beat Winnipeg Jets 4-2 on a Saturday afternoon game that kind of was a bit of a roller coaster, wouldn't you say, Kurt?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I thought the Oilers were by far the better team over two periods. And going into the 5 minutes into the third, I think this game's over. And of course, I should never say that out loud because the Jets made it way closer than anybody would have liked. I still think the Oilers are full marks for the win, but there's a few things in that third period that Jay Woodcroft and crew are going to want to tidy up.
Yeah, they were definitely the better team, out shooting the Jets 40-24. Our preliminary count of grade A shots had an 18-14 for Edmonton, and an especially strong first period, actually. And then they started to loosen up a little bit in the second, and more so in the third, and allowing chances against. But overall, they were the better team on the night, even if they wound up having to kill off a too many men on the ice penalty with a 1-goal lead and 2:05 on the clock. How's that for a timely penalty?
Yeah.
So in the same barn where they blew a 3-goal lead in the third period of a playoff game last year, maybe the team just sort of learns to forget about those things, but us poor fans, man, all I could see was visions of that penalty and everything that happened after it. Anyway, the name of this podcast is Two Good Things, Two Bad Things, and Two Numbers. And Kurt and I are going to revert to an old tradition of when the Oilers win, of doing two good things each. So, Kurt, I'm going to let you lead off. What's your first good thing out of that game?
Well, if it's okay, I'm going to tie my two good things together under one umbrella. Okay. And I want to start off with the Edmonton Oilers were killing a penalty, and the pair of Zach Hyman and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins comes on the ice. And I've written about this before, and I know you have too, Bruce.
Right.
I think they are by far and away the two best penalty killers on the team. They're really smart players. They have really active sticks, and they seem to have chemistry together, shorthanded. So I usually feel good for the portion of the PK when those guys are on the ice. But in particular, Nugent-Hopkins, with the aggressive play he made on the PK, and it was a fight for a puck with Josh Morrissey. Right. That ended up deep in the Winnipeg zone. And Nuge was so aggressive on that forecheck that he ended up forcing Morrissey into taking a penalty. So not only are you doing your job of keeping the puck on the other end of the ice when you're killing the penalty, but you actually force the other team into taking a penalty and negating the power play. So tick for Nugent-Hopkins on there. That's kind of a win-win for me.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was a terrific play and an overall great defensive game from Nugent-Hopkins, who I think is really in a groove right now overall. But here's where I connect my two good things. Because if Nugent-Hopkins doesn't make that hard play on Morrissey, doesn't negate the Jets' power play, then you don't end up with the 4-on-4 situation, which they ended up in. And as we all know, Leon Draisaitl took that puck in the far right-hand corner around the net, drew two Jets to him, and then on the backhand, threaded a pass through not one, but two Jets players, and found Connor McDavid just sitting alone on the doorstep, and bang, it was in. Most NHL players would be challenged to make that play on their forehand. Let alone that sweet, silky dish on the backhand. My goodness. I just kind of sat there with my jaw open for a minute. And, we've seen this from Leon before. We know it's something that's in his skill set. But I tell you, I never get tired of watching it. And bang, bang, it was in. And I really felt the game. There was two major turning points in this game. One was the early 5-on-3. And the other one was Nugent-Hopkins negating the Jets' power play, which turned into the 4-on-4 goal. by McDavid and Draisaitl. So there's my one and my two good things kind of back to back.
Okay. Yeah, the Nuge play. I mean, he made a great play at the defensive blue line just to take the puck out of the air and whack it ahead to clear the zone, and then he turned on the Jets to force Morrissey to take him down. So that, it was a good defensive play followed by a good aggressive pursuit of the puck that led to that. And as for that Draisaitl pass, I mean, Leon actually recovered the puck in the left face-off circle in his own end, and he was under pressure, and he kind of pushed it to open ice, and he went and he recovered it, and he pushed it again. He took it eventually to the neutral zone on the right side board, so he got diagonally all the way across the ice by then. And then he got it into Winnipeg territory, and then he circled the boards all the way behind the net. So he didn't have the puck on his stick the whole way, but he was the only guy that ever had control of it for a good probably, well, I'd say over 200 feet, because he basically did the width of the ice a couple times and most of the length of it once, and ended that sequence off. And it was, sort of a struggle to maintain possession of the puck, but at the end of it, that absolute thing of beauty, that was that backhand pass that threaded right across the goal mouth onto the waiting stick of one Connor McDavid.
And I've watched that replay a number of times now. I didn't even see him shoulder check on that pass. He just knew that he should be there, and he was. Yeah. Right. So, and credit to McDavid, not only pounding it home, but also, what? It's when really great players have chemistry together, they don't need to see one another. They do have that sense of where one another is. Right. And credit for McDavid for, it may seem subtle, but he put himself in a really good spot. And I guess if you're a Jets fan, you're maybe saying, I think our guys got guilty of puck watching a little bit. And I think that's probably fair too. But still, to make the pass, that to me, that was the whole key to the sequence. So.
Now, when you got a magician with the puck on his stick saying, now you see it, now you don't, it's easy to get transfixed by it.
Absolutely. So there's my two good things. Okay. What two did you go to?
All right. Well, yeah. Okay. We talked about one other good thing for you too. We'll get to in a minute, but I'm going to start very early in the game with an absolutely key sequence where the Oilers took 2 penalties in 30 seconds in the opening stages of the game. First of all, Brendan Perlini took one for hooking, and then Zach Hyman took a careless penalty for high sticking while on the penalty kill. And for 1 minute and 30 seconds, the Jets had a 2-man advantage in every opportunity to put first foot forward in the game. Well, 90 seconds later, not only did the Jets not have a goal, they didn't even have a shot, having to killed off the whole 90 seconds. And it wasn't the usual Draisaitl as the main 3-on-5 penalty killer. The Nuge was the guy chosen by of course the new coach Jay Woodcroft to do the bulk of that. Draisaitl cleaned up maybe the last 20 or 25 seconds of it. But Nugent Hopkins, to me, he and Nurse and Cece, all three of them were great in that sequence. And especially Nuge, who twice got his stick on a pass that was going across the slot. And he didn't intercept it, but he disrupted it so that the one-timer was taken away, that the pass was going right to, Kyle Connor, or whoever was going to let her fly, Mark Scheifele, 2 deadly snipers that the Jets have in the opposite circles. And twice Nuge tickled the pass going over to them and disrupted the one-timer, so they just had to cycle some more. And then the third time, Nuge again was involved in interrupting a pass, and this time he deflected it, as I recall, to Nurse, who then cleared it down the ice, and that was the key moment. And then they were able to get the change in, because by then those 3 guys were sucking wind, and then the Draisaitl crew came over and cleaned up the rest of it. But that was a absolutely crucial sequence by Edmonton to maintain and actually establish control of the game. And soon thereafter, referees, as referees tend to do, gave Edmonton a chance on the power play, and their power play connected, and Edmonton had the lead, and they kept the lead the whole rest of the game. So that whole little sequence on special teams of just really a few minutes was a critical turning point in this game.
Would we agree, Bruce, that 6 to 10 games ago, the Jets would have got a power play goal there? if for no other reason than what I think I would describe as the fragile state of the team at that point in time.
Yeah, probably. But they looked anything but fragile there. They killed that penalty with confidence. I really liked
Yeah,
the job that they did there.
Yeah, and I mentioned that Nugent Hopkins is such a smart player. On the
Mhm.
PK, I find his anticipation is just so finely honed.
Mhm.
Like he knows a half second before something happens that it's going to, and it's boy, it's fun to watch. And there's a few players around that like the league, but it's sure nice to
Yeah.
have one on your team. And I really admire his defensive play. It's a real pleasure for hockey fans to watch.
Yeah, he's the finest 3C we've had in quite some time.
I
Well, they
100%, right?
finally got him in that role that Kelly Rudy foresaw several years ago, to much derision from oil country, but turns out
Including from me
maybe
at the time, I'll admit.
turns
Yeah.
out maybe he had a. And when he did say, in Rudy's defense, he did say Nuge would be a real good 3C.
Oh yes, yeah. I
And
did hear the comment. I will agree with that. In Kelly
mhm,
Rudy's defense, he meant that as a compliment, and not
yeah,
everybody took it, including me at the time. But it
right.
was what he said wasn't offside. I'm prepared to admit that now.
So we had pre-discussed another good thing that happened very, very late in the third period that caught your eye, Kurt.
Yeah, and that's Cody Ceci, who I thought he and Darnell Nurse were the Oilers' two best defensemen tonight. I thought Ceci was
By a lot.
excellent. By natural stat trick, his high danger scoring chances for against were 3, 4, and 0 against. I don't know if that matches up with your Cult of Hockey grade A chances numbers, but I thought he had pretty much a clean sheet on the ice.
Mhm.
Including 5 minutes, 44 seconds shorthanded. He carried a heavy load on the penalty kill.
Right.
But in particular, late in the game, not once, but twice, Ceci came up with what it would be fair to consider game-saving shot blocks, particularly the one, given that it came off what I'd consider the Jets' best player, Mark Scheifele.
Mhm.
Um, Scheifele got the puck in the kill zone, and I know I don't know about you, Bruce, but I took a deep breath in when I saw the puck go to him. But Ceci got down low and got in front of it and blocked it. And I know Koskinen commented after the game on that
Did he?
specific play.
Good.
But
Good.
the two shot blocks came back to back.
Hmm.
And it's funny. I harken back to when you and David and I did our mid-season player grades,
Right.
and we talked about how. I think, to be fair, I think it was me that said, I thought maybe Cody Ceci was a 4 coming in, but I think he'd performed like a 5 and maybe a 6. I think we're seeing him maybe elevate a little bit past that, and back-to-back plays like that late in the game with the game on the line makes you glad that he's out there in those situations.
Well, I was sure glad he was out there in that situation. That was enormous. There was 17 seconds or something on the
Oh
clock.
yeah.
It was really getting down into the very late stages. It was still 6-on-4, and Edmonton was close to surviving the crisis, but they needed at least one more huge play, and they got it there from Cody Ceci.
Yeah, and as I say, I thought he was excellent overall tonight, and generally has been lately. So.
Okay. My second good thing is going to be the man who largely dominated this game, Connor McDavid. I thought he was splendid throughout, and he was flying along. He was involved in the first 3 Oilers goals that gave them the lead, earning a assist on the Hyman tip-in on the power play. He made a splendid play to send Yamamoto in close for a 2 shots, which Yamamoto buried his own rebound. Did a nice job to recover his own rebound and pop it upstairs to make it 2-0. And then, of course, McDavid himself had was able to be on the receiving end of a good pass and put it home when Draisaitl set him up for what became the game-winning goal. But that aside, I mean, obviously those are big plays, but there were other plays. I mean, there was one unreal move that he made in the slot on the power play where he fired a backhand that whizzed over the crossbar. That was another one where he got loose right in front of the net and tried to deke Hellebuck right in tight, and Hellebuck had to slam the door on him. And he was just skating well, creating, and I thought his two-way game was really strong tonight. Uh, if he made mistakes, they weren't obvious, other than you may have detected him as being the culprit on the too many men penalty, which
I think he was the guy that jumped on
okay,
early. Yeah.
okay, well that's not good. But that's one thing out of many good things, and he was all that tonight. He was the best player on the ice. And games like this remind me of a little bit, I think, what we've been missing in December and January this year. And that is, having McDavid on your team's like having a cheat code. You put him out there, and all of a sudden the whole game gets easier for your team because you got one guy who's faster than anybody else. He can move the puck better than anybody else. He can, he just takes things to a whole nother level. And when he's on his game, which by and large is more often than not, when he's on top of his game, uh, his chances of his line outscoring and his team winning are pretty good. And that he hasn't had those kind of impressions on as many games during the middle part of the season as you might expect, but these last couple of games in particular. And tonight we had shots on goal with McDavid on the ice at 5-on-5, 18 for the Oilers, 4
Wow.
for Winnipeg. And that included 1 goal on 5-on-5. And of course, he was also on for a power play goal and a 4-on-4 goal. So, I don't know, he was a very positive difference maker in this game. And I would argue he was the difference in this game.
Yeah,
He will be getting the highest grade from me in the upcoming player grades.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. When he's flying like he was tonight, he backs other teams up, right? It's
yes.
And even the Jets, who are a pretty disciplined neutral zone team, it's pretty hard to push back against that speed without the risk of really getting burned badly. And that's maybe among the many things that his speed helps create. I think when you can back up a defense, that's maybe the most important of them all. And I agree. His defensive game was great tonight. Both he and Draisaitl. I mean, a Draisaitl play, that diving play at the blue line to clear the zone late.
Mm-hmm.
I think if there's been a change in mindset on this team over the 5 games that Jay Woodcroft has been head coach, it seems like there is additional commitment to get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you start to see that, and generally speaking, I think both of those guys are good on both sides of the puck. But when you see those sorts of plays in the middle of February, that tells me something a little bit different.
Right on. Okay, well, that's the good things, and do them first because most of the good things did happen first. Now let's move on to the bad things. We'll just do one each. Always one. So what's your bad thing? What's your takeaway?
Yeah, my bad thing is the shorty, the 3-on-1 goal. And as you know, I'm a Tyson Barrie fan. I like Tyson Barrie. He's been going through a rough patch, so I was really happy to see him get the assist on the power play goal to open the scoring tonight. But on that shorty, twice, not once, but twice on that 4-minute power play, the Jets got clear-cut breakaways. Once a defenseman got in behind Tyson Barrie and went all the way down. Dylan did. And Mikko Koskinen, to his credit, made a real solid save on the move that Dylan attempted and stopped that one. Well, okay, that's going to happen every so often on a power play, but not back to back. And they, when the score's 3-0 at that stage in the game, if there's a 50-50 puck in the attacking zone and I'm the D-man, I'm coming off the wall and into the middle.
Yeah.
And I might not be coming off the line, but I'm backing right up to the line just to give myself an extra couple of strides. So if that puck pops loose, nobody's behind me. And at 3-0, Winnipeg's going to start. You mentioned cheat code. They're going to start to cheat. Any team would. Mm-hmm. And in that case, you don't need to score the 4-0 goal. And the problem with that play was not only did it make the score 3-1, not only did it give the Jets some juice, it gave the building some juice too. And I think we saw Winnipeg fed off their home crowd, and fair to say they had the momentum for the huge majority of the rest of the game. And I think all of that led from that 3-1 goal, where Barry, he's a veteran guy. He's smarter than that. When you see that 50-50 puck, you've got to come off the wall and back up a couple steps and make sure nobody gets behind you. But the fact that it happened twice is like, come on. I expect better, and hey, we won, so I don't want to dump all over them, but it's just, someday that's going to cost them a point. They're kind of lucky that it didn't tonight.
Yeah, well, he had a pretty good game. The box scores say he had 2 assists and he was +1, Barry. 1 assist was a very cheap one, but the other one was a good point shot on the power play goal, and that's what they saw in the power play for. But that late power play, 4 minutes with 3-0 lead, and Jack Michaels is confidently asserting that even if the Oilers don't score, they'll have a 3-goal lead with 8 minutes to play. And I'm going,
thanks, Jack.
I saw what happened to Team Canada in the Olympic gold medal game the other night when they gave up a shorty on a 3-0 lead, and it was white knuckle time all the way to the buzzer after that. Yeah. And here we go again. And when they got the first breakaway, I'm thinking, it's Brendan Dillon. So, you got to think your goalie's going to make the save, and he did. But there's absolutely no excuse at all for it to happen the second time. And honestly, even I would criticize the coaches a little bit there for having just one very offensive-minded defenseman on the ice, and they were looking for that 4th goal, and they had a few chances, but they couldn't beat Hellebuck. But they just didn't mind to score. And with 3-0 lead in the third, you either put 2 D-men out there, or you put, anyway.
Yeah. It was, well, you know what? I don't disagree with that. When you look at the sheet of ice as that play developed, you had Kane and Draisaitl and Nugent Hopkins and McDavid, all hash marks and deeper. Right. So in that formation, they've got the Jets outnumbered 4-3. Right. So there is only one guy you have to shoulder check for.
Right.
So it's just, that's a play that I guarantee will be on the chalkboard with Jay Woodcroft, because that's not a physical breakdown. That's a mental mistake. Right. And I think it's fair to say with the 3-0, maybe that should be Nurse and Barry on the ice. I buy that, Bruce. I think that's a really smart suggestion. But at the very least, one of your forwards in that situation has to make sure they're staying high too. Yeah. But it's not like it was an odd man rush, right? It was just one guy, and Barry he skates well enough to be effective offensively, but he's not going to catch anybody. Sure,
not even Brendan Dillon.
No.
So our colleague David Staples, who was working with me on the scoring chances in today's game, he pointed out to me that these mistakes by Barry were the 9th and 10th such defensive errors that we've charged Barry with on the power play this year. 10 mistakes for grade A chances for the other team. Yeah. And Bouchard and Nurse, the other 2 regulars on the power play, or semi-regulars, between them they had 1. I can't remember which one had it, but 1 for the 2 of them, 10 for Barry. So, and Barry, David said, he only had 3 all last year. So it's just, he doesn't look like a confident player right now at all. And when you're not, you tend to make more mental mistakes than physical mistakes. Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to expand on that bad thing. I just thought the whole third period, the Oilers got a little bit sloppy, and just the first part of the third period, it was like 3-0, and we've got, everything's going our way. And I just thought they got a little bit soft and sloppy with their puck management and their play inside their own blue line. They started losing battles on the boards. They started not being able to clear the puck beyond their own blue line. Or on the occasions they did get it past the blue line, not getting it past center. They flip it out, but a Jet would be in the neutral zone. He'd knock it down and come pouring back in. And they weren't doing a very good job of getting the puck 200 feet away and killing the clock a little bit. And so there were some signs, and Louis DeBrusque was talking about this on the broadcast, and I was talking, even during the play, I'm always have this running commentary with my wife, and I don't like this. They really got to start winning more of these battles in the corners and stuff, and a little bit of cursing, and it's just standard hockey fan watching his team, and get a little uh, post-traumatic stress with this team that I think we all suffer from. But you could sort of start to see the cracks starting to form, and then that power play. You think 4 minutes now. This should really stabilize things, but it wasn't stable. They went for it. They tried to make it 4-0, and it was just it was not. They didn't execute in the offensive end, and ultimately they didn't execute defensively, and then it was game on.
Yeah, I was watching this game with my wife too, and each of us have a common thing that we'll shout during a game when things aren't going well. When Mike Smith leaves his crease, Kathy shouts, "Get in your net!"
Okay.
And if you've ever met Kathy, she's like 5'0", right? But like, "Get in your net!" And mine, when the Oilers can't clear their zone, is "Put it off the glass, boys." Yeah. And there were at least 2 examples in that series I think you're talking about, Bruce, where they had the puck on their stick under control and with more time than I think they thought they had, and didn't clear the zone either time.
Right.
And I'm with you. I saw a few others where they did punt it over the blue line, but it didn't get past center, and bam, it went right back in the Oilers zone again. So yeah, it's that fire drill of play didn't last that long, but it could have cost them a point.
Makes for a long 20 minutes when you're playing the half ice game. That third period clock just rolls extra slowly, I guess. All right,
it'd be interesting if we ever put your wife and my wife together in a room watching an Oilers game. There might be fireworks. See what they come up with.
Well, she's pretty quiet. It's me that's doing the moaning and groaning for the most
Generally,
part.
Kathy is too, but there's a few things where she doesn't mind speaking her mind.
Right on. So let's wind up with our numbers. And again, Kurt, you go first. What's your numbers from?
I have 2 numbers. I'm greedy today. I've kind of got 2 of everything. But my numbers go together. My numbers are 5-0 and 22-8. 5-0 is the Oilers' record since Jay Woodcroft became interim head coach. 22-8 is the goals for and against for the Oilers over the course of those 5 games. And when you are outscoring your opposition 22-8, you got a real good chance of going 5-0. And it's and while it's easy and right to pick on some of the things in their game that are still too inconsistent and not quite up to snuff, overall the last 5 games, I feel really confident saying the Oilers have been demonstratively better than their opposition over the large portion of minutes over those 5 games. So 22-8 and 5-0 for our friend Jay Woodcroft.
All right. Well, I'm going to just read the row of numbers by a player who I thought had an exceptional game today. He'll be getting a grade of 8 from me in this game. And that is defenseman Darnell Nurse, who the event summary said had a goal, which of course was an empty netter from like 160 feet away with 2 seconds left. It was just kind of like the cherry on top, or here's your reward, Darnell, for having such a good game. Because I saw him as having an excellent defensive game. One of the best games I've seen him have in his own zone in a very long time. 1 goal, 1 point, +3. 27 minutes and 42 seconds and 28 shifts, comfortably leading the Oilers. He played 228 as a secondary performer on the power play and 545 on the penalty kill, including that crucial 3-on-5. Led the team in even strength minutes as well, 1929. 7 shots on goal to lead the team. 9 shot attempts, 2 hits, 2 giveaways, 2 takeaways, 2 block shots. Like, he was involved in every aspect of this game. And I thought he was a tower of power like I say, especially on the defensive side of the puck. Very steady. One time a guy got behind him. Who was a dangerous Winnipeg guy, and Darnell just came from behind and just lifted his stick, stripped the puck away, and swept it into the corner. Yeah. And that was that. And you could say, well, he got himself in a bad position. Well, he sure cleaned up the mess, didn't he? So,
and without taking a penalty in the process.
No, it was perfect. He just lifted the guy's stick and Who the heck was that? He was one of
I'm
the.
trying to remember who that was too. It was
It was one of the. It was Connor, maybe. It was one of the more dangerous jets anyway, and
I've got it
he.
written down somewhere, but I can't read my
Mhm.
own writing.
So anyway, I'll just take that whole set of numbers and I'll just for good measure shots when Darnell was on the ice at 5-on-5, 14-8 for
Hmm,
Edmonton. So a nice margin of flow of play in Edmonton's favor. So
good one. I had a couple other tiny things from the
yep,
game that I'd
go for it.
like to get your thoughts on.
Hmm.
One is I thought, generally speaking, I thought Mikko Koskinen was really quite good tonight.
Hmm.
I had no issue with the first goal, and the second goal, that Connor, he is deadly from that spot, and there was
Sniper.
about a puck's width of room, and he hit it. So I'm going to give a shooter like of his quality that goal. So I thought Koskinen, he was good enough for the Oilers to win. Which, when you're playing against Caller Hellebuck, I think you'll
Hmm.
take that, right?
Yep.
So that was my one observation. And then the other one is we've been talking a lot about how Jay Woodcroft has been so masterfully spreading the ice time around, and the same for Dave Manson. That really wasn't the case tonight.
Yep.
And it's going to be interesting to see how that bleeds into the back-to-back game tomorrow. Because, when you look at time on ice on the blue line, Philip Broberg only played 634.
Hmm.
Up front, Brendan Perlini just 348.
Hmm.
Derek Ryan 859, and Tyler Benson, who I thought was decent, just 910. So it was kind of back to the big horses. Like Draisaitl played 2449, and as you mentioned, Nurse 2742. So
Hmm.
while we have 5 wins for Jay, we really have 4 games of spreading the ice time around because they didn't really do that tonight. Although I guess, to be fair, special teams had a fair bit to do with that, especially for guys like Perlini and Broberg and Benson, who really don't play in either
Right.
power play or shorthanded discipline. So
Yeah. Yeah, Benson, he got a fair look. Like he played way more than Perlini did. Of course, Perlini didn't help his cause by taking a penalty on his first shift. But then he came out of the box and had a great chance. Couldn't bury it, but we didn't see a lot of him. But Benson, I liked his game. He had 2 shots, 2 hits, and more than 2 good passes off the walls. He's really smart at winning pucks along the walls and both ends of the ice too, where he'll control the puck and he'll one look and he'll make a 10 or 20-foot pass to an open teammate, and the puck will be moving out of the zone or continuing on in the cycle, as the case may be. And
yeah,
sure, it'd be nice to see him put one in the net or get a couple of points, because I
it
think
sure would.
some of the foundations of his game are very strong, but they're just not really getting rewarded. And
Yeah, no, I
it's
agree. I agree with that. And I think I saw one for sure. I think 2 shifts where he was actually in Nugent Hopkins' left side.
mhm,
And it's way easier to produce when
right.
you're lined up with a player like Nugent Hopkins. And you have to wonder if one just goes in for him, you have to wonder how much momentum that gives his overall game. Because I agree with you,
Yeah,
the underpinnings of his game have been quite solid. But at some point when you're in the NHL and you're a forward, you got to score. So we'll
100%.
we'll see.
Yeah, well, this is the beauty of the 11-7 is that rather than being on the fourth line and playing with 2 fourth-line plugs, to use the term, you got
Mm-hmm.
one other guy, and then the third forward on that line cycles in. And today Benson played 346 with Draisaitl, 301 with McLeod, who he knows well from past, 228 with Kane, 207 with Perlini, his nominal line mate, 155 with McDavid, 155 with Nuge, 140 with Hyman. I mean, that's a lot of skilled players that he's at
Mm-hmm.
least getting, a look with here and there. And as a strategy, I kind of like it. It just would be nice to see it pay off with, some crooked numbers under the goals and assists column. I
Yeah,
thought I
100.
thought he had a sound game today, but
Yeah, I saw him the same. See, Evander Kane got a shift on the PK, and I thought did not look the least bit out of place. Marcus Niemelainen, man, he's fun, right? That's just an element they haven't had back there for a long time. he's a better skating Andy Sutton. Right? It's like, here comes the train.
Yeah, and he does skate well, and he really closes the gap fast when he decides he's going to step up and hit a guy. That guy doesn't have a whole lot of time to get out of the way, and he generally doesn't have a whole lot of space to get out of the way either, because Niemelainen fills it all.
I think it was Logan Stanley that those two collided in neutral zone once. I think that shook the rink.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, he's going to be a fan favorite. And speaking of the fans, Oilers fans will get another 1-game homestand tomorrow, where the Oilers come back and play a single game against a tough Minnesota Wild team, and then they get a couple of days off, but make the road trip to the furthest point in the NHL, 2 Florida teams,
Death Valley.
They'll play next week, Florida, Tampa, and then on to Carolina. So nice to have a couple of home games in there, but the way the schedule is this week, it's just like it's a 5-game road trip where twice they happen to stop in Edmonton for 1 game.
Yeah.
There's no sort of time to stay at home and rest
or
up,
practice or anything, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be a grind the rest of the way. But hey, they're in a good spot. If you look at the standings, they're 6th in the West now, 59 points.
Yeah.
And 3 points behind second place Calgary in the West.
Excellent.
So what a difference 5 games makes.
Yeah, well, even with all these games upcoming, as tough as they appear on the schedule, they have banked now 10 points in the last 8-9 days.
Huge.
From last Friday to this Saturday, 10 points in 9 days, 5-0-0. So we'll take that.
Thank you, Jay.
Yeah, thanks. It's been a breath of fresh air for sure. And some very interesting coaching philosophy. I've taken time to watch some of Woodcroft's avails this week, and he does tend to go on for a few minutes. Like some of them are, 8-12 minutes even.
But what an articulate guy!
Oh yeah. No, and you can really get the sense of the structure and his own foundation as a coach, and one of the things you don't hear much talk about, but which I personally love, is that he got his start as a video coach. He's 3 years in Detroit studying videos and preparing these snippets of stuff for players, and you can't help but start to pay attention to the details of the game. And I mean, obviously he was already paying attention, but that would finely tune your attention to detail. Which appears to be a real strong point of this coach, and just that whole element of using the video. I mean, that's first nature to him. That's how he got to start, and he built on that with some pretty sound fundamentals of human relationships, which is another thing that really impresses me about this guy. He understands that these are flesh and blood humans that he's dealing with. And I'm not saying the other coaches don't. I'm just saying that to succeed in life generally, it's really helpful to understand that that's what you're dealing with. It's not like numbers and not all in the computer somewhere, or you're playing NHL 2022 on EA Sports. You got to understand and build on the human relationships. And I get the impression very strongly that he excels at that.
Yeah, and you know what? I think you're going to get more or less the same production from your best players, where I think perhaps his biggest impact has been, is, if I can put it this way, the bottom half of the roster. It just feels like those guys want to play for him, and I don't think there was any lack of respect for Dave Tippett, but there seems to be something different in the air with those bottom half roster guys, and we're certainly, I think, seeing more consistent contributions from them since he took over behind the bench.
Well, many of them have played for him in the past, of course, and this is where he's got a cheat code of his own. That he's worked with these guys. He knows them, they know him. He trusts them and understands where they can contribute. They in turn trust him, and there's a nice feedback loop there. But all these guys like Ryan McLeod and Tyler Benson, and all 4 of what I call in the Brat Pack on the blue line, that were regulars in Bakersfield for entire seasons or big chunks of time with him and Dave Manson, and so that he's got a running start at it because of
Yeah,
that. I mean, he's worked more with those guys than Dave Tippett ever did.
oh no, absolutely, I agree. Although it's interesting, the one guy who it seems he's really clicked with or connected with is Derek Ryan. When you listen to Derek Ryan talk about how he sees things today,
I heard
boy,
that.
it seems like two different seasons, doesn't it?
Sure does.
Yeah.
Sure does. Well, in fairness, full disclosure, the first guy who did move Derek Ryan to right wing where he's finding success now was
It's
Dave
Dave,
Tippett.
right? Yeah.
That wasn't just the last 5 games. It's like the last 10 games that he's played right wing. And so
Yeah.
Woodcroft just left him where he was, but obviously getting better results.
Yeah, it's possible Derek just isn't a good enough skater anymore to play that heavy role that he was playing at center. But he was always a lot smart hockey player, and you see a lot of those plays seeping back into his game again at the wing, where there's a little less on his plate, and he probably has a little more time too. So it's been a good switch so far.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, to properly tag Derek Ryan, who was put in a sort of a defensive role here, 3C was kind of where he was, was moved towards. And even the press questioned him the other day was saying, well, you're primarily a defensive player. And I watched that and going, well, no, actually, I think Derek's primarily an offensive player. And he was in Carolina and Calgary. But he's been, was pigeonholed with that job here, like Kyle Turris was last year. And maybe that role just wasn't the right one for this player at this point in his career. Let him do what he does best.
What's that saying? Right acquisition for the wrong spot.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I think a lot of people have a lot of time for Derek Ryan, but and I think by his own admission, I don't think he had played particularly well. But some of that is linked to opportunity and circumstance too. So.
All right, well, let's leave it there, Kurt. I got to get back to writing the player grades for this game, but now I've got a good, solid podcast to go with it. So I thank you very much for filling in for David today.
Yeah, happy to do so, and I always look forward to your game grades. So I'll sit by with bated breath. So.
Okay, it'll be a little while. I'm slow, but thorough.
It's all good.
All right, well, thanks for listening, everyone. And in the meantime and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.